How you doing out there, Helix fans? This is your captain, Brian Vollmer, coming to you with our newest release from the album Scrap Metal. This is called Stuck in the 80s. Yeah!
That is Helix with their new single, Stuck in the 80s. It drops this Friday on all download and streaming services. You're going to be able to get that album, Scrap Metal, on CD, vinyl, and as a digital download. I think we're going to put together some packages, some really cool packages for this particular release. Brian and I have been back and forth talking about that. And I think maybe that's probably going to happen. So that is our friends over at Helix, Planet Helix. You can go check them out at planethelix.com. Check out the rest of their tour. They're touring with Nazareth. They've been playing with Prism and Lee Aaron, as well as Killer Dwarfs. So Go check out the rest of that tour if you can. If you're out in the West, you're not going to want to miss it. They're going to be in places like Dawson Creek and Calgary, Abbotsford, I know as well. So they're going to take the West by storm as well, playing with Nazareth. So this is on Nazareth's farewell tour, I believe. And we will be talking tonight a little bit about a guy named Aaron Murray. So Aaron Murray is the producer of that album with Daryl Gray, Scrap Metal. He helped produce it. He helped musically on it as well. He mixed it all, and then I think our friend Harry Hess mastered that masterpiece. But I'd like to put in a plug for people. So Aaron Murray has an ad up on Facebook, and I wish I could. I'm gonna send you guys to Aaron's Facebook, and you can check it out there. If you're in the chat room, don't forget to join us there. If you got any questions, please fire away. Oh, I didn't want to contact support. Of course not. All right. Let's see. Is it going to let me do this? I'm not sure. There it is right there. Facebook.com, Aaron Murray Audio. Go check him out over there. He's got an ad there. He's got a really interesting home in London, Ontario for rent. It's 2 full bathrooms. It's a 4-bedroom, I believe. Yeah, 4-bedroom raised ranch home in beautiful downtown London. I think it's tree lined in East London, walking distance to many amenities, public schools, and all the other good stuff. 2 full bathrooms as well, $2,700 a month plus utilities for a whole home. And you would be Adam's neighbor. Welcome to the neighborhood, Mr. Rogers. That's our friend Aaron Murray. He is a award-winning producer. He has helped produce that album for Helix. And remember, this Friday, Helix's single drops, Stuck in the 80s. That's what we featured at the beginning of the night. So we want to talk tonight. I'm going to talk tonight about goals and objectives. Oh, man, this could be for anybody. This could be for any musician. This could be for any person. When you think about setting goals, do you ever keep certain things in mind when you're setting, specific goals for yourself? So whether these are personal goals or whether these are goals that are just musically oriented, or they could be very specific around career, depending what your career is. If you've got a career in music or you have a career in some vocation, you're going to have goals and objectives. Whether you have them formulated and formal or not is up to you. It's really how you decide to plan and order your life. But goals and objectives go together for anybody. It doesn't matter whether you're a musician or whether you're an individual just setting specific goals for yourself. What are some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about setting goals? And this could be like a goal of quitting smoking, for example. And the objectives are all the steps that you're going to do to get to there. So maybe the first is to get past that first cigarette of the day. Maybe that's the first objective, get through that first cigarette of the day. So what am I going to do? My objectives are to keep myself occupied, because smoking is largely a behavioral activity. It's just an example. It could be anything, right? But it's a behavioral activity. So you can interrupt that behavioral activity by retraining your brain to think differently about those things, and then reorder your day, not necessarily around that particular thing. So in order to have set really good goals, you want those goals to be realistic, right? Every goal should be realistic. Is it something that is realistic given my circumstances, given the resources that I have at hand, given whatever talents I have? right? As I think of a goal that's realistic, is it realistic within my time constraints? Is it realistic within my abilities, or do I need someone's help to do this, right? So there's a whole lot of different things that could come to mind in terms of setting goals and objectives, and they don't necessarily have to apply to music, but for musicians who are typically don't always consider themselves disciplined outside of the discipline of music itself, need to discipline themselves to set realistic goals for themselves. So, first of all, goals need to be realistic. If they're realistic, given your circumstances, given your time constraints, given a whole lot of other things, so you're going to take all those things into consideration when determining whether or not a goal for the day is, attainable, right? Is it realistic given how my day's going to go? So if my goal is to, let's say, I've been putting extra dollars in the swear jar because, I've been using the F-bomb too many times this week. So maybe my goal is to not drop the F-bomb this week. Maybe that's my goal. And if my goal is to not drop the F-bomb this week, what kinds of things am I going to do so I don't find myself there? So if it's because of a dose of frustration and you go, oh, right, then you have to train yourself to change behaviorally what you're going to do, right? So one of those objectives are going to be, I'm going to take a deep breath before I say the F word. I'm going to think about what I really want to happen here. And in that split second, I'm going to change my behavior to say or do something else because I've decided dropping the F-bomb has become unproductive. It just becomes, a regular word and has no meaning anymore because I say it so often. So maybe that's your goal, and maybe your objectives are to deal with things as they come up that might be triggers to you to use the F-bomb, for example. Now, as a musician, you could set very specific goals. They could be professional goals. I want to be a better singer. And I notice that when I go in the studio and record and when I sing live, sometimes my vocals are flat. Now, if my vocals are flat, what am I doing behaviorally at the time that is causing that vocal to go flat? Is it a note I'm trying to reach? Am I having trouble hearing the note that I need to reach because I don't hear it in the mix? And I need to hear somebody specifically in the mix to set my tonal quality so that I'm going to be singing in key. Okay. Otherwise, you're dependent upon quantizing the vocal or other artificial means, which is then not really who you are. So if the goal is to not sing flat and you play back the tapes and you recognize that there are certain phrases where your vocal falls flat, then of course, one of the objectives in there would be to go back and review and find out exactly what note it is you were supposed to be singing. If you were just flat of that note, then you want to lock that note in your head. Maybe that's part of the relearning of that singing of that phrase. Maybe that's what one of the objectives is. Maybe the other objective is in there to look at what my posture was like when I was singing. So oftentimes when a vocalist goes flat, they could be on a backward lean rather than more up on the balls of their feet. So I was once told, if you want to sing more sharp, get up, move forward in your stance and change your posture so that you are singing that note exactly as you're hearing it. Now, like I said, it could be that there's a note in there that needs to be lifted out of the mix to cue you so that you're singing right on key. Okay, so whether it's one of the guitar players or whether it's a note the bass guitar player's singing, or whether it's going to be something in the guitar section, in the rhythm section, that's going to cue you as a singer, right? And you better hope that the rhythm guitar player is consistent if you're taking that cue, because you want to be right on that note. So that's just one way to set a goal and objective, okay? Is it realistic? It could be based on my time constraints. Maybe I've given myself 6 months to achieve that goal of singing on key all the time and reviewing, taping every show that I do, or at least taping the songs that I'm finding myself singing flat on. Because you listen to it back, you're going to know right away whether you were sharp flat or right bang on, right? It's the same as, anybody in the band. That could be another thing. We want to become better musicians. Record every session if you can. Go back and listen to it and finding out. Don't point the blame. Don't play the blame game. Let everybody figure it out for themselves, because it'll stick out like a sore thumb. And they'll go, oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I flubbed that note. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did that. It just creates that level of honesty where, there's no more egos. It's all about team and trying to figure out how we can make this sound better, right? So recognizing how my contribution to the band can make the band sound better, right? It's realistic, it's understandable, and it could be measurable. And how do you measure something? So you want to put everything in sort of understandable language that everybody understands. So if the goal setting is for the whole band, then agree on language that makes sense to everybody in terms of, the goal and what the objectives are. So maybe the objectives are that, we always start 10 minutes after the time we're supposed to start rehearsal. Let's start right on time. Okay, so rehearsal's at 7:00. Everybody here, be ready here and be ready to go by 7:00 so you can go on 7:00 sharp. Then you get your full session of rehearsal without any interruption. So that could be an objective and a goal, right? So the goal is everybody's on time for rehearsal. One of the objectives will be that everybody's in the studio and ready to roll, or in the jam space and ready to roll ahead of 7:00. So by 5:00, everybody's tuned up, by 5 to 7, everybody's tuned up, ready to go, right? Unless it's more relaxed and you the beginning of your rehearsal is about, chillaxing a little bit and spending a little bit of time together as well. So sometimes that's how we start our rehearsals or our jams here. We will start them by, chilling and relaxing before we actually sit down to the music. We might listen to last week's recording and then purpose to redo some of those songs in this session and see if we can't do them better and put the song structure a little tighter together. So again, those become goals and objectives. Are they measurable? Yes, they are. Are they understandable? Yes. They're realistic. And they're behavioral. They're things that everybody can do. Everything you do is a behavior. So you can make those goals and objectives behavioral. What's the behavior? The behavior is everybody's ready at 5 minutes to the hour, if that's the way it's going to be. Or maybe the first half an hour of the rehearsal is listening back to tapes and talking about song structure and all those things before you start the rehearsal that evening. That way, everybody's maybe tightening the song down, figuring out their shit a little bit more. Who knows, right? But that's a goal and objective. Those things are, again, And I'm going to leave you with this acronym tonight. RUMBA. I'm going to put it in the chat. RUMBA. There we go. Rumba. And when you're looking at goals and objectives, setting goals, okay, first of all, they need to be realistic. Second of all, they need to be understandable. That means everybody involved in it, including yourself, has a good understanding of what the goal is. Is it measurable? Make the goal measurable. Make it measurable in terms of time. Maybe make it measurable in terms of money. Make it measurable in terms of, I don't know, new followers on social media. Okay? Make it measurable. Then make it behavioral. Behavioral means, what are you going to do? How are you going to change up what you do to be more effective? Right? So maybe I'm not working our Spotify for Artists profile enough. And maybe I should be changing up artwork on our Spotify for Artists profile and putting out some blogs to engage more people and get more followers on Spotify. Maybe my goal this month is to get, 10 more followers on Spotify. Is that realistic? It could be, given your growth. You'd have to look at what your growth has been, right? You would examine it against what your previous growth has been, whether it's growth into markets, whether it's growth into penetration, whether it's growth in terms of engagement. Whatever those measurables are, you can go back and look at those, and now you can set new goals that, one up you. So maybe, I'm going to gain, based on our previous performance, my goal is for us to gain 10 new followers on Spotify. Now, here's the interesting thing about goals. You can sometimes give yourself a nice endorphin and nice serotonin, dopamine boost by setting those goals realistically and maybe low enough that they're very achievable. If we exceed the goals that we set for ourselves, we're more than pleasantly pleased, right? We're not disappointed because we actually exceeded the goal we set. So say my goal is, 15. I think I have 15 set in my head. I want to get 15 new followers on Spotify this month, 15. Okay. But I think maybe I'll only be able to get 10. So I set 10 as my goal. If I get 10, I'm good. If I get anywhere close to 10, I'm good. But if I get over 10, I'm pleasantly surprised and very pleased with what I did. And I'm going to work harder the next time to do the same thing and maybe get the same or better results. So those are ways that you can set goals and objectives, right? That are first and foremost, they're realistic, right? That they're understandable. They're understandable in terms of, maybe what's going to be done. What are the things that are going to be done in order to, make that goal more realistic? And then, is it measurable? Can we measure it in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of, new followers, right? And it could be new followers on Facebook, on Instagram. Maybe you've been struggling with Instagram, and one of your goals is to gain 10 new Instagram followers this month, right? It means put out a little more content. I always tell people, here's the easiest one you can do. You can make a reel of yourself, right? About 30 seconds long, no longer, as a musician, as an artist. If your music is published on Facebook and you can cross-post Instagram, all the better. Make a reel on Facebook, 30 seconds long. Use your music in the background and talk over it. So set the music at about 30% volume, set your volume at 100%, and do a voiceover over top of the track, talking about the track itself and why people should listen to it. Make it a little infomercial about the track. Who knows? Maybe you'll get 10 new listeners on Spotify just by doing that. And maybe you'll get 10 new followers who become engaged with your content on Instagram. Now, engagement is a way of measuring your level of success. You can be successful by measuring the outcomes of your goals and the objectives that you use to achieve those goals, right? So if the goal is measurable, how do we make the goal behavioral? Well, everything we do is behavior. So that's pretty easy, right? All we have to do is change our mindset and act like what we want. Now, I'm not really good at that. And most days I fuck up because I lose sight of the goal, right? I lose sight of the goal itself. The goal itself is to be, more, right? Not to be up here and be excited by things as they come along, but try and find a way to ride the wave of adversity so you're not caught up in it, right? Maybe that's a goal, right? But through behavior, we can modify everything. So let's say I'm the guy that's always late for rehearsal. And my goal is to be not only on time for rehearsal, but to be there well ahead of start said time, if it's that strict, right? Or at least be there at the very beginning of the time. So if the time is 7 p.m., get there at 7 or before, right? Sometimes it's a great time to socialize and catch up if you haven't seen each other for a week or two, right? It's great to catch up as well because that creates part of the chemistry of the evening. It can set the tone for the evening, being able to chill a little bit with each other and bond a little bit more. If you bond with your bandmates, you're going to get better at what you do. You're going to be more in tune with one another. So maybe the goal is not to make the rehearsal so structured, but to give an opportunity for everybody at the beginning of rehearsal to socialize a little bit before you get down to business. And maybe during that time, 30 minutes, you listen to the week before back. And maybe you might, fast forward through some things, but you're just really looking for, how was our sound structure, our song structure? Was everybody together? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I heard a flub. I did something wrong there. I played the wrong note, or I went to the wrong place, whatever. Or there was a bit of a delay, or I came in late, or I came in early. Those things are all learnings that you take forward, and those can be great learnings, and then they become behavioral things that you do to change the outcome, right? So when you have goals and objectives that are behavioral in nature, you can modify, as you modify your behavior and change your behavior to move towards those goals and make them more achievable. And that is where this whole mindset of act like what you want. So what I want at the end of the day is to have cohesion with my bandmates, right? Cohesion with my bandmates. What do I do behaviorally that builds cohesion with my bandmates? So think of that. If you're in the chat room or if you're watching online, feel free to make a comment. I'm always open to that. I love that when people watch and they make comments. It makes my life a whole lot easier in terms of being able to generate some answers that might be meaningful for people. And this is all based on things that I've learned in my 10 years running a record label, as well as my 40 previous years in healthcare. So you learn things, but sometimes you're not really good about those things in practice. The one thing that I have to really work on is acting like what I want. So, how do you act like what you want? So, if I want cohesion with my bandmates, I have to act like I want that cohesion. So, that means building those relationships, not tearing them down, not being critical of my bandmate's performance, but encouraging my bandmate to listen to the playback, encouraging my bandmate to listen in real time. And just as a general note to everybody, maybe a pep talk with everybody saying, you know what, we all really got to be of the same mind here. We really have to, be together and have to gel in this. And sometimes I feel like we're right on. Sometimes I feel like we're not. And sometimes you get a response from everybody who goes, yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? When you're not connecting musically with your bandmates, it's not necessarily someone's fault. A lot of times it's just that vibe, and maybe you got to defunk that, right? Sometimes it's just going on to the next song and then coming back to that song after because, everybody's having trouble getting it back in their head. Maybe. And if it's something you haven't played for a while, there's a good chance that's going to happen. So think about that. What are our goals in terms of becoming a better or tighter band? So that could be a behavioral thing and things that we do to become a better or tighter band, right? So that, that camaraderie at the very beginning of your jam, or at least after, right? Sometime where you're actually sitting and interacting with one another and building that fun relationship that you have and that passion that you all have for music, right? And finding a way to find common goals within that. And then everybody agreeing that, it's important to continue to modify your behavior every time you get together because it just makes you better. And if you become better at communicating with one another, you will achieve your goals a whole lot faster. And making the goals achievable. What makes a goal achievable is you looking at the goal at the onset and seeing the results down the line, where you can visualize the result. Visualizing the result helps you to achieve that goal, right? And then on top of that, acting like what you want. So if you want that goal to happen, what do you need to do yourself? Lead by example. Don't even tell anybody, right? Show me, don't tell me, right? By Rush. Show me, don't tell me. Just show by your behavior that you're listening. Show by your behavior that you're interested in building cohesion as a unit, right? If you're a singular musician or a solo artist, then you're going to be looking at it slightly differently in terms of your own attitude about, getting better at what you do. So being critical of your performance and then being able to take a look at that, your own self-criticism, and say, okay, I can do this better. I can do that better. And how am I going to get there? How am I going to achieve those things? And again, whether you're working as an individual or whether you work in a band or whether you work with a group of people or whether you work by yourself, it's really important to act like what you want in terms of achieving your goals. If you don't act like you want to achieve those goals, right? So here you are here. The goal is down here, depending which way you go. So the goal is down here. And you are trying to get closer to that goal. So here I am here, and the goal is down here. I want to get closer to that goal, right? And by getting closer to that goal, there's things that I can do along the way. So those are behavioral things. They're things that I can change. I can change my attitude. I can change the way that I decide to make decisions about moving towards that goal. Another thing that I can do is I can pay more attention to my own behavior rather than everyone else's. And that is easier said than done, because we always tend to want to look at the other guy instead of looking at ourselves and saying, okay, what can I do differently? How can I change my behavior to move towards the goal that I've set, or we've set, or the band is set? Whatever it is, what are the goals that you're hoping to achieve? Because as you move towards those goals, you may want to change some of your actions as you move towards those goals, because you're recognizing that some of your objectives, the things that you're doing to get towards that goal, are becoming less effective. Now, it never hurts to reassess your objectives along the way when you're trying to achieve a goal. And again, whether this is personal, whether it's in a work setting, or whether you're a musician, a working musician, whatever your walk of life, you can apply this in terms of becoming better at what you do, no matter what it is. Maybe you want to be a better sloth. I don't know. And that means I'm going to find other ways to be lazy today. Okay. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe you're retired. You want to find another way to have time well wasted, right? Some of us know what time well wasted looks like, because it might look like watching your favorite sitcom on TV and vegging for a little bit and having a few laughs. Who knows, right? For me, it's watching old reruns of some great sitcoms that probably would never be appropriate in today's world. So there's a whole lot of different things that you can do in terms of setting these goals and objectives. And I said, make them realistic, make them understandable, make them measurable. So am I measuring this in terms of time, resources, money, effort, right? What have I got to do? And what are my resources? How am I spending those resources, right? So it may be managing those resources in terms of, keeping things realistic, because I may have limited resources. And my limited resources may impact my ability to reach specific goals. And I may have to think about unconventional means of reaching those goals, right? Doesn't matter, mean I can't meet them, but through the standard way of meeting those goals, I may not be able to meet them. And that may, mean that I need to change a few things, right? How am I measuring those goals? Do I measure it in time, resources, and amount of energy spent, right? One way of not burning out when you're setting goals is to make it so that you can achieve goals and set new ones, right? So goals don't have to be the end. They can also be a means to an end, right? So you can set linear goals for yourself that I achieve this, right? So first goal is, if I plan goals in succession, this makes it easier for me to plan going forward, right? So again, as I'm setting goals for myself, maybe I need to set successive goals to achieve, because it's sort of a tiered approach. It's going to take me a while to achieve this goal. So my first goal is, I don't know, I'm going to get 10 new followers on Instagram. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to make one reel a week. I'm going to make it a content reel. I am going to use my artist music in the background and do a voiceover over it. And I'm going to make it like a short 30-second infomercial talking about my music and why people should engage with it, right? Hey, I'm so-and-so from so-and-so, and have you listened to our track? Well, it's playing in the background right now. Check us out wherever music is streamed or downloaded, right? There's some really quick ways you can do that. And then in the reel, you can post the links to where you want people to go, right? Now, if you posted one reel a week, you might say, okay, I want 10 new followers in a month. So you're hoping to get 2.5 followers per reel. Is it possible? Well, if you make that reel a call to action, it might be. If you make that reel engaging and you've got some decent music out there that people are going to like, right? And then make sure you're speaking to your demographic. Make sure you're speaking to those people you're going to be able to engage. And that is looking at your analytics and taking a look at how your analytics come into play in terms of the audience that you're going to target, right? If your main audience is age 30 to 65, okay, then take a look at where that peaks and then go a little about either side of that peak and say, okay, there's my main target audience. If I can engage more people in that age group, overall, I'm going to get better engagement. I'm going to get probably more streams of my music because I noticed that age group is consistently streaming my music. So again, there's different ways that you can coordinate those objectives and goals to achieve an end. And the end is I want 10 new followers by the end of the month, if I can get 10 new followers by the end of the month. And that could be a simple goal, right? I set that goal for myself and I set out to achieve it by keeping the goals realistic, keeping them understandable for me, understandable for anyone that's involved in helping me achieve that goal. Or if it's a group goal, make sure that everybody's speaking the same language. Make sure that everybody's on the same page, right? These are ways that you can ensure that you're going to have better and greater success at achieving your goals, right? So keep them realistic, keep them understandable, keep the goals measurable. I'm going to keep saying these things and coming back to things that, that are measurable. So measurable is 10 new followers. Now, let's say I only got 5 new followers. Okay. Now, I could be disappointed with that number. Or I could say, well, that's 5 new followers I didn't have last month. And now they're not only followers, they're engaged followers. There's another measurement tool right there. Engagement. I got 5 new people following me, and every one of those 5 people are engaged. They're engaged on my social media, and I've seen a rise in my monthly listeners and my followers, right? So if you make that infomercial speak to someone that might see it, might like it, and it starts trending on Facebook and Instagram, you could gain yourself some new followers. But let's say you only get 5. You were after 10. The goal was 10. Is that a failure? No, it's not a failure. A failure is not starting. A failure is not even trying. That's a failure. If you go after that goal and if you get no followers, if you don't get any new followers, what can you do? One of the things you can do is say, I'm going to set that goal even lower. I want 5 new followers this month. But if I get 3 new followers this month, I'll be happy. Right? Act like what you want. If you want 3 new followers, act like you want those 3 new followers. What are you going to do? You become a salesperson to sell your product. If it's your music you want them to follow, or if you want them to follow you on Instagram, or you want them to follow you on Facebook, whatever you are, maybe you're a content creator, right? You are after those people to engage with you and be engaged in your end product, whether it's music, whether it's media, whatever it is. You want people to engage with you. Okay. How do you measure that? You measure that in terms of numbers. If I set my number as 3 and I got 5, man, that's a bonus, right? Set the goals lower, right? Lower your expectations. Sometimes, now I remember watching this psychologist one time. He talked about this whole weird thing about choice, how having too many choices can paralyze people, right? And he gave an example himself. I think his name's Barry Schwartz. He's a behaviorist. And he talked about, going into a store to buy a pair of jeans. And when it came time to get his jeans, do you want relaxed fit? Do you want full fit? Do you want slim fit? Do you want extra thin? Do you want tall? Do you want short? Do you want big and baggy? Do you want dark stain, light stain, faded, whatever? Like, there's all these different choices. And he said it was really funny. He said, I became paralyzed because there were so many choices. I didn't know which one to make. Brent's got a point here. Thanks, Brent, for joining us tonight. When I learned how to make a short on my phone, I was thinking of reciting my lyrics, my song in the background. Good idea, buddy. You are about the lyrics. So Brent Durner, who is originally guitar player for Helix, he has 6 studio albums. We're actually in the midst of releasing his 6th studio album, and we've been re-releasing stuff off his previous stuff because he's gone back and learned a whole lot of really cool production stuff. And this is, again, a guy who isn't afraid to learn, as a producer, as someone who's trying to get better at what he does. He hears things in previous mixes and previous productions he wish he had done differently. Right? That is one of the best ways for you to grow as an artist, is to recognize something you did or didn't do that you could improve on. Right? Now you're going to set a whole new set of goals that are realistic, that are understandable, that are measurable, that are behavioral, and they're attainable. And the reason you can attain them is you're going to adjust your behavior. You're going to modify your behavior to achieve what it is you want to achieve, right? And I remember doing these behavioral exercises, and they used to make us take all these behavioral exercise courses in management. And I worked in management in healthcare. So a lot of times the stakes were really high. We're dealing with life and death situations. We're dealing with, lots of personalities, and there's a whole lot of, things at play as you're making those key decisions as things go forward. And you have to find a way through the minutia of all that, because everybody's got their own agenda about what they're trying to achieve here. But what you really need to think about is, what do I want to happen? What I want to happen is have everybody cooperate, find a way to improve what we do to make the patient experience better. That was one of my goals, and as a leader in healthcare, was how do we improve the patient experience? Well, one of the ways of improving the patient experience was shortening wait times in the emergency room. I was capable of doing that because I was a manager. As a hospital manager, I could work with the staff to decrease wait times to keep them realistic. And so when we exceeded the expectations of the people waiting in the emergency room, and they got served in an orderly fashion because we were able to manage patient flow throughout the hospital, right? They got served sooner. They got their concerns addressed sooner. By developing changes in triage behavior in the emergency room, we're able to triage people based on their emergence for need, based on a nurse's assessment. So a nurse doing an initial assessment to determine how much distress the patient was in and how bad their health need was to get seen. So then it goes through a whole process of triaging patients based on priority. You can do the same thing. You can triage your goals based on priority. What is my most important goal today? Maybe my most important goal today is not to choke the living shit out of somebody, or at least have visions of choking the shit out of somebody today, because I'm so frustrated by everything that happens. Sometimes that's taking an honest analysis of what happened and going, oh my God, I really lost my shit today. And I need to get better at multitasking, and I need to get better at managing those things as they come to me, and recognize that I am less efficient when I'm responding out of anxiety, or I'm less efficient when I'm responding out of upset, right? If I respond out of upset, I have a much harder time of achieving my goals. And it just becomes a grumble exercise to people that I'm trying to resolve the issue with, instead of something constructive that leads to a common goal, right? Today, I was faced with a very real, not for me, but for a significant person in my life, a health dilemma, and having to help orchestrate things to ensure that their health could be addressed in an optimal fashion. And that means working with people and sometimes losing your shit and then realizing I lost my shit. I'm like, oh my God, that's not what I wanted to do. What I really wanted to do is get everybody to cooperate with me, get everybody on the same page, and figure out how we can resolve this thing, because we all want the same thing. We all wanted the same thing. When you all want the same thing and you're all after the same goal, it's a lot easier to get there if you find the commonalities of what it is you're hoping to achieve. Common goals, especially in a band situation, they can become a catalyst for getting better as a band and becoming tighter as a unit, because as you set common goals that everybody wants to achieve, right? You work at getting better, and you work at being more critical of your own part in that. And you don't need anybody else to point it out to you, because it becomes apparent to you right away what it is you need to modify. And if you need to modify anything, it's your behavior. Remember, goals are realistic, understandable, measurable, behavioral, and achievable. Okay? Rumba, RUMBA. Look it up. There's a whole bunch of stuff on it, man. There's a whole pile of stuff on it from a behavioral science point of view. But it really is a lot of common sense. The common sense is, if I want to achieve a goal, am I going to get there quicker am I going to get there quicker if I act like I want to or not? Right? If I act like I want to get to that goal, I'm going to get there sooner. If I act like I want to get near that goal, I'm going to work with other people that are involved in helping me achieve that goal. Maybe it's my bandmates, maybe it's my manager, maybe it's other people that I am involved with, right? Maybe it's sorting out a family dilemma that is taking your attention away from your work. But nevertheless, the family dilemma that needs to be dealt with ahead of the work, again, going back to priorities. What is my priority here? Am I willing to sideline this? Do I need to sideline this for family? If something comes up that is a family crisis, that I am the answer, or I am the person that's going to help figure out this problem, then I need to avail myself to it. And sometimes we don't want to, because sometimes we're so caught up in what we're doing. And I was guilty of that today. Here I am editing a video, trying to sync a live video that's at a slightly different pace than the recorded version. And I'm trying to get everything to sync up just so it sounds great. And this is all live footage stuff that I'm trying to put to a recorded track, which I think is a really cool concept, because it shows the band with this awesome recording of the song. And because you can't always do live recording justice unless you're recording directly off the board and you've got a mobile system for doing that. And not everybody possesses that ability. And so therefore you rely on other means. So filming video and hoping you can sync up that video in some way, shape, or fashion with the audio that you want to put it to. Because it's just another medium to demonstrate the artist's ability to record in the studio and also to perform on stage. That there's more happening on stage because it's a show. It's not, it's a rock show. It's not just, everybody standing there. It's people moving around and putting emotion and feel into what they're putting out there on stage. So that could be a goal. Is it realistic? Yeah, it's realistic. Geez, I looked at myself the last time we played live and I barely moved off my microphone. I didn't need to be there all the time. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to change my goals, right? I'm going to purpose to move at least 4 times during a song. So maybe that's my goal. What am I going to do during that time? Well, maybe I'm going to, there's enough time for me to stroll because I'm not singing any backup vocals. I can stroll over to the other guitar player and play, jam with him for a few bars and then run back over to my microphone, but not trip over everything on my way back there. So there could be goals like that that's set in terms of my movement on stage or my interaction with the audience. Maybe I'm not interacting with the audience enough. Maybe I'm not giving enough audience eye contact. Now, if you're playing a venue that's got really, really bright lights, it's sometimes very hard to see beyond the first row or two. So it's hard to gauge the reaction of people. But if you can make eye contact with people, all the better, or at least appear that you're making eye contact with the audience, because you're going to get more of a reaction from it. So maybe that's in your goals. Is it realistic? Yes, I can do that. I can, try and interact with the audience twice every song, right? Maybe if I'm a guitar player, it's me, working to put a lick in while the next song's being introduced or something, right? So there can be all these great goals that you can set. Make sure they're realistic. Make sure they're understandable. Make sure they're measurable. Make sure they're behavioral. And make sure they're achievable. If you modify your behavior, if you direct your behavior towards the goal, right? So my goal is today, there's a door-to-door salesman. I know he's going to come to my door. I don't want to lose my cool on him. I just want to, tell him nicely, no, thank you. Have a nice day, right? So that's my goal. And I'm not going to take no for an answer. Or if he doesn't take no for an answer, I'm going to say, I'm sorry, but I don't have time to continue this conversation. Good day. And then you move away and close the door. You terminated that conversation under your own terms. You weren't rude about it. You just decided that you were going to deal with that door-to-door salesperson and you had no interest in interacting with them beyond the initial niceties and say, thank you very much for coming by, but no thanks, right? So that could be a goal. You accomplish that through some behavioral objectives. I acted like what I wanted. I wanted this guy to leave, but I didn't want to offend him, right? And I didn't want to appear difficult or standoffish, just that I'm not interested. I'm sorry, but what you have there doesn't interest me. And if I am, I know how to get a hold of you. You left me your card. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. See you later. And have a nice day, right? And make sure you send that person on their way in a great mood, even though you had to say, sorry, can't engage today, or I'm not interested in the product you're offering. Thanks, or I just don't have the time to deal with this today, right? There's a whole lot of things you can do if you don't want to interact, and you can set your goal to interact in a way as to not offend that person and send them away happily on their day. All right, well, we're 10 seconds off the hour. I want to end tonight on time because I rarely do that. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. If you had some comments, please share them below. Watch the replay. And remember, this is the Indie Show. This is Hump Day. It's Wednesday. I'm Kenny. You're not. Have a great end of your week, everybody. Peace out.